Welcome back, welcome back. You're watching a special highlights programme of Frost Over the World, meeting again some of the guests we've spoken to on the programme in the past year. And who better to start with than one of the world's greatest living actors, Anthony Hopkins. He starred in more than 70 films and won an Oscar for his chilling performance as Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. We started off by talking about the influence of his father on him and on his career.
We got on well together, but he was a tough, hard guy, and he was worked as a baker. He didn't have any frills about him. And so I took inherited a lot of his emotional DNA, let's say. He was tough, and I think I'm tough. And he didn't have any time for all the frills of the theatre.
Really?
Acting and all that. Not that he was an actor himself, but
he
was very down to earth. He said to me, I was at the Vic, he said, "You don't want to hang around here, you want to make money like Richard Burton." So I saw, like, my mother said, "Oh no, he's got to do." But he was very realistic. I remember he met Laurence Olivier.
Oh yeah. In
the dressing room, I was doing a play with Joan Plowright, and Laurence Olivier came in and met my mother. My mother went a very funny colour, when she met him. And my father said, "How old are you?" And Olivier said, "I was born in 1907. He said, "Same age as me, going down the bloody hill now, aren't we?" He said. And my mother said to him after, she said, "That was Laurence Olivier." He said, "Well, he breathes oxygen just like me, doesn't he?" So that's why I've taken my attitude about everything.
I love you're a fantastic impersonator, in addition to being rather more importantly a fantastic actor and so on. But you're Olivier.
No.
Just to
oh no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
All right, do Tommy Cooper, because that's
oh,
a
sure,
new
it's
one.
always a lot of that. Thank you very much. I went to the doctor and he said, "Get up on the table." I said, "What for?" He said, "I want to sweep up." That's right. I stood there with my wife like that. No, it's like that. I shouted, "Dear, dear," and she said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I'm feeling homesick." She said, "But you are, Adam." I know, I'm sick of it. He's the best.
Yeah, fantastic. Tommy Cooper.
Yeah.
And truly international figure too, because of course so much of what he did was visual in addition to the voice, wasn't it? I mean,
he didn't actually work well in America. They didn't get him. They said, "That guy's not funny." I think we have a different take on everything in Britain. We have a darker sense of humour, I think. And we sort of love failures, and Tommy Cooper represented the total fool and failure. All his magic tricks went wrong, and I think it touched something. It's like Morecambe and Wise. They touched something in us.
Yes.
These wonderful fools that they were. I think we appreciate that.
Yes.
And the Americans don't appreciate that.
Don't appreciate that sort of humour.
I don't know. I don't think they get it. I think they're a winning nation. They always want to, we've got to be on top all the time. Yeah. Which is
and probably more one-liners in America.
Yeah, I think Jewish New York humour is the best. That kind of zinging. But I think that's very similar to our humour, I think.
How did you get into this business in the first place? In Port Talbot or wherever? Port
Talbot, South Wales. Well, I came from the same place as Richard Burton. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was so stupid at school, so I thought I'd better do something that saves working for a living. And I became an actor. I just drifted into
drifted into it?
Yeah, I got a scholarship for the Cardiff College of Music and Drama in 1955. Had no idea what I was doing, and I won a scholarship. And I drifted into this business, and I've been in it ever since. My first love was music. I always wanted to be a composer, and now I'm that.
You're focusing on that now.
Yeah.
People may not have realised that we've got concerts coming up this year. You've got big concerts coming up this year purely about Anthony Hopkins, composer.
Yeah, yes, and I just do it for the fun of it, and people seem to like it. The Birmingham Symphony wants to do it, and I had a concert in San Antonio a few years ago, and then one in Cortona, the music festival. So that's what I do. It's a wonderful hobby.
Yes. Do you conduct as well?
I do. I will hopefully on the Birmingham concert, maybe one or two pieces.
Oh really?
Yeah. I love writing music. It's something I've done most of my early life, from about, let's say, the age of 15, something like that, doodling little bits and pieces on manuscript, and years later, all these pieces that have been swimming around my head for many, many years, I've now orchestrated, and I don't have academic training. I don't have an academic background. I read music and I can understand music, but I don't have a training in it. So it gives me a tremendous freedom. I don't have any worries about that people are going to like it enough. They don't. That's their problem. I just write in a very free way, and so I'm not constrained by that discipline of knowledge.
But luckily they've all survived, so they can.
Yeah.
the original folios or whatever.
Yeah.
Folios, a good
Folios,
word.
very posh, but
Very
Royal
posh.
Shakespeare.
So that you really were starting 15 or something on the music then.
Yeah, about that.
And that's incredible. And art, I mean, when did that start? We're talking here about a real Renaissance man, folks. A Renaissance man. Yeah.
Renaissance man. Well, my wife Stella, she encouraged me. She found all these scripts I had, and I used to do paintings on the blank pages and all kinds of drawings. She said, you ought to do this for real. So I started painting about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And I have shows in Hawaii and Waikiki and places like that. And again, a very free style of painting, and people seem to like them, and so I sell them. Yeah. And again, it beats working. Yeah. I really enjoy it.
But are you more dedicated to those forms of artistic endeavour than acting? No, acting's still number one, of course.
Well, I enjoy acting. I probably enjoy it more. I don't make a big deal of it anymore, and you know, you make some, so you win some, sometimes you lose. You know, make a couple of bad films, maybe make an occasional good film. I never did take it too seriously. When I was younger, probably did. Now I just have a good time, and I like working with directors like Andre Moraes and Fernando Moraes and Woody Allen. What
about doing some more direction as well as everything else yourself, Tony? What about that?
Well, I did one crazy film called Slipstream, right, which was the inside of my head kind of movie. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I will. I don't toy with that fantasy too much. I enjoy acting, enjoy good directors, I enjoy music, I enjoy painting, I enjoy reading.
Tony Hopkins there, actor, composer and artist. Well, we've met plenty more actors too in recent weeks, including Simon Callow and the glamorous coupling of Matthew Fox and Olivia Williams, who were appearing in London's West End in the thriller In a Forest Dark and Deep. They played a brother and a sister, and they were required to be on stage for the whole 100 minutes duration.
Going through the psychological journey of these two, brother and sister, and whether there is any redemption to how cruel they can be to each other, has been a real journey of discovery, and we found this brother and sister relationship through hard graft. You know, I think anyone who saw us go through it would agree that we worked hard to make it real. And
Did you find that tough, becoming brother and sister on stage?
Yeah, I mean, there was a process to it, and I always felt upon meeting Olivia for the very first time that we were going to, that we had the right energy with each other in that respect. And I thought, you know, it is important. These people are so fundamentally different, Bobby and Betty, in the play on every level, politically, socioeconomically, I mean, education-wise. They're really coming from two polar opposites. So I thought it was really crucial just in the casting of the two of us that we physically could be believable as brother and sister, and that we would start to find this relationship that was based on history and emotion and past. And we worked really hard for that. We had a lot of help. We had people that came in and helped us really work on trying to find that relationship, and we're both very happy because we get a lot of comments that part of it is very, very believable, and that people buy right into that, even though these two people are so fundamentally different.
Did you expect Amadeus to be the huge hit it became?
Yeah, absolutely. It was rather like Four Weddings and a Funeral. The moment one read the script, one just knew this has inbuilt success, unless we completely mess it up. And Amadeus, of course, had a number of advantages. It was a play by Peter Schaffer, who had just written Equus and Royal Hunt of the Sun and was one of the most acclaimed dramatists on the face of the earth. It was about Mozart, which is a perennially interesting subject, and Paul Scofield was playing Salieri. So again, as with the 12th Night, which I'm doing at the moment, which is sold out immediately, so did Amadeus, almost instantly.
And of course, Four Weddings and a Funeral is another. Well, I suppose that's the thing you're most famous for. It may not be your favourite role, I don't know, is it?
I loved it. I loved playing Gareth. I think it was a very remarkable piece of writing. In fact, the whole film is they're very hard to bring off, these romantic comedies. I think you could compare it in the sense of the chemistry being perfect with Casablanca. It's one of those things which lots of people had written films in the genre of Casablanca, but the many authors of Casablanca just hit the nail on the head with that one. Casting was perfect, everything about it worked. Same thing with Four Weddings and a Funeral. It just, it all clicked in a way that is impossible to predict.
And you were the funeral.
I was the funeral, which was a rather striking and
We
daring
could therefore
thing.
say you were in the title role.
I am indeed in the title role.
And Amadeus was a huge hit, and Four Weddings, well, that was a different form of fame, really, wasn't it? I mean, it was so global on film, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and remains, because of the world in which we now live, DVD has transformed the way people know films. Because in the old days, if you wanted to see your favourite film, you'd have to wait patiently until it came round again. Then television started reviving films. But with DVD, you can watch your favourite film whenever you want to see it. So I keep running into people who have seen Four Weddings and a Funeral 50 times.
Oh, 50 times. Not
50
just
times.
seen it. As if it's
Just seen it, but also seen it 50 times. And that means to say that they know it a lot better than I do. I've seen it once.
Someone else who now stars in countless DVDs is the legendary athlete Carl Lewis. The 9-time Olympic sprint and long jump champion remains one of the most famous athletes of all time. He told me how it all started.
It's probably the most amazing athletic moment of my life. I was in a competition in Memphis, Tennessee, in a year in the 70s. And I was 16 years old, and my personal best was 24 feet in the long jump. And that meet, I went out, I became national age group champion, and I jumped 25.9 at 16 years old. And it was just almost 8 meters. Right. And so it was such an amazing day. It just transformed my life. And from that point on, I said, look, I can actually go to the Olympics. I can do this thing. You know, the dream might be able to come true.
And you got to meet your dad, who was a mentor and introduced you to Jesse Owens?
Yes, I met Jesse when I was a young kid. And, excuse me, and so my father always talked about, he knew Jesse Owens. And please, your dads always tell you they know everything. And I'm like, Dad, you are such a liar. And so finally, I went to a track meet in Philadelphia, and he said, you know, Jesse Owens, I'd like to introduce you to my son. And Jesse was very polite, looked at my father like he had 200 heads, like he didn't know him. But then my father said, wait, I'm on the spot now. So he talked about some times when he was in Chicago as a kid, and Jesse remembered that. He's like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, I was a little kid, blah, blah, blah. And he remembered there were 5 kids or something, and it was really kind of amazing. And so I sat there and I listened to him, and I remembered so much about him, about how he treated young people. But the biggest thing I remember is his voice. He had such an amazing voice. It was booming, and when he told stories, he just transformed everyone in the room. And I just felt like, I want to be like that, you know.
The greatest athlete in 1936 and so on, wasn't he? I mean, did he give you any advice?
What he did is that I was a little kid. I was a late bloomer, and I told people all the time, you know, kids say, oh, I'm short. I said, trust me, you still have a chance. And he talked about doing the best you can and being the best you can be. That's something I learned from him. He talked about that all the time. I met him that time, and I heard him speak 2 other times. And he always talked about that very message. And what's interesting is that, you know, years later, I competed in the same events. And one of the great things is that what people don't realize is that Jesse had this amazing thing with Hitler and won these gold medals for the Olympics. But he was shortly thereafter banned. He lost his amateur status. And he also went to his ticker tape parade party in the service elevator. I mean, he was not allowed to go up the regular because he was a black man there. So therefore, he was treated better at the Olympic Games, you know, in Hitler's time than he was when he came back home. So it was really an interesting thing.
Yeah, Sammy Davis, too, couldn't stay in Miami in the same hotel where he was performing.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing that we don't think about. And so years later, when I was at the Olympics, I remember I was at the games, and one of the guys finished it. Some reporter said, yeah, you know, you might have got the 4 gold medals, but you'll never be Jesse Owens. And I said, you know, you're absolutely right. I'm going up the front elevator.
We've always welcomed guests onto the program who can be described as movers and shakers, people pushing for change, ways of making things better. Hugh Fearnley Whittingstall is one such. He's a famous chef, but he's really concerned that the world's fish stocks are depleting. And another great name, James Watson, is the Nobel-winning scientist who helped to discover the whole structure of DNA. How has the world changed as a result of what you discovered with Francis Crick and so on?
Well, it hasn't changed enough, but I think it soon will.
Really? Oh, that's, why not enough? And then when
well, we haven't cured cancer.
No. Yeah.
Okay, or we haven't cured mental disease or a number of things, but there's just a tremendous amount of pure knowledge which has to been accumulated since our discovery, and people are saying, you told us that everything would finally happen when we had the human genome, and now 10 years have passed, and human life hasn't changed, and you've got the genome. And what I'll tell you is the next 10 years, if we really organize ourselves, almost like a war, we could banish most cancer in 10 years. I think we can.
Obviously, there is not just one form of curing cancer, is there? There's going to be several, perhaps.
The statement you hear most often is that we have to, to really cut the cancer in system, we've got to detect it early, and because you don't want it to progress. But I'm saying that now I'm optimistic because I think we can kill late-stage cancer. So you don't have to worry about early detection, because early detection could be, psychologically wrenching. Every time you go to the doctor and you get a test, is the test going to be good or bad? Yeah. But if you could kill late-stage cancer, you don't worry about detecting it early. No. But people sort of assume late-stage cancer is bad. So I'm giving a talk this afternoon at the Institute of Cancer Research on Fulham Road, yes, at the Marsden, curing incurable cancer. So, that make that your objective. Yeah. And back home, I'm hosting a meeting on, quote, curing melanoma. Now, everyone knows that's incurable. Okay, so let's cure the incurable.
It's difficult to talk comprehensively about the problem because it's not always fully understood what's happening out at sea. And that's partly because of one of the problems that I'm most exercised about, and that is what's come to be known as discards. And this is the waste of good fish. This is the amount of good fish that could be landed, but that isn't, either because of the commercial motivation of the fishermen, or frankly because of crazy political rules that mean that once quotas are met, fish that's caught beyond that quota is wasted. So we have two.
Is it wasted at sea or before it's brought into land, or is it also wasted on land?
Most fish that gets to land is put to one use or another. So you could question some of those uses, what's called industrial use, the forming of fish into fertilizers and pet foods and things like that. But there's also about 8 million tons of fish that's discarded at sea. I say about because it's very hard to measure, but yes, it's at least that figure. And this is fish that's thrown away because it isn't the target species of the fishermen, or because in Europe they're not allowed to land it because of our, rather, I would say, insane common fisheries policy, which means that once you've caught a certain amount of cod, you're not allowed to catch any more cod. You can go on fishing for other species, but if you do catch more cod, you're obliged by law to throw it back to sea. And that's the specific problem in Europe that I've been campaigning against.
And finally, we return to the silver screen. Two contrasting characters, but both box office. Catherine Deneuve has been described many times over the years as the most beautiful woman in the world, while Cuba Gooding Jr. is the exuberant character best known for his role perhaps in Jerry Maguire, where you may remember he demanded that Tom Cruise should show me the money. His latest film was about black pilots in World War II, and he was working with the legendary Star Wars director What a joy for any actor. George Lucas.
That's right, George Lucas. It's a passion project for him. I'll tell you a really quick story if I can.
Yeah.
When he was a young filmmaker, he had this movie about intergalactic warriors that 20th Century Fox had given them the money to make. And it was a story about that he entitled Star Wars. And he's working on this project. And during the production of the movie, after you finish filming, you do what they call the post-production on it, where you put in the sound effects and everything and you polish the movie. Well, the studio hadn't seen any footage. And what happened is they said, we want to see what you're shooting. And that horrified George, because he's like, you don't understand it. You won't understand until I get the special effects in there. It's not going to make sense to you. And they said, we don't care. We want to see what you've done. We've given you a considerable amount of money. We want to see the movie. So he's like, what should I do? So he took footage of the black fighter pilots from World War II who flew bomber escorts for the B-52 bombers when they raided Berlin. And he put that, spliced that into the movie of Star Wars, and he showed that to the studio executives. So he screened it that way, and they were blown away. We were like, if it looks anything like this actual footage, we get it. Here's the rest of your money. Make your movie. And he said from that day on, he's going to tell the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, the red tail fighter pilots, and that's what the movie basically is.
And I've been so involved with films, and I was lucky enough to get proposed things interesting, when I was young, and it went on. I was very lucky, I mean, it's not only luck. I mean, you have to do choices. You have to, take chances and meet people, and sometimes get involved and do mistakes, because mistakes are also part of life. But I've been quite lucky, yes.
And talking of new woman, people talk about a new woman today,
really?
As opposed to a trophy wife and so on. Do you think there's a new womanhood today, particularly?
No, I don't think there is a new woman, but I think that things have improved, and there are more women, at work. A lot of women work, but more women to responsibilities, places, and women with more power. Still, it's more difficult for women than men at a certain place in the business world or politic world to really. You have to prove twice, your value more than anything.
What, with all the characters you played, everything, what would be your definition of love?
I don't think you can live without love. I think it's like I think it's a necessity, but I don't really think of a definition except that it's to also put other people than yourself, in your life. Giving a lot of place to people you like and sometimes you love, but liking, actually even hating, is part of love. It's a sort of opposite to love, but it's the same strengths and the same. But I don't think I have a very good definition of love. No.
And that's it for this Highlights programme. I hope you've enjoyed seeing again some of our recent guests. We're off for a break for the next few weeks, but we'll be back early in September with a new series, the 6th season of the show. Until then, goodbye for now.